I moved to a tiny cabin in the Smoky Appalachian Mountains about a week ago. I was 32 and wanted to capture some unique wildlife shots. I had spent time in the woods before, but this place felt different. The cabin was isolated and quiet, surrounded by tall pines. Each morning a thick fog settled over the valley, beautiful yet unsettling. I felt uneasy, but I wanted to be there. The first night I remember lying in bed. The floor creaked every now and then. It was just me and the darkness. I thought I heard soft thuds against the walls. I brushed it off, assuming it was branches outside. Eventually I drifted off to sleep, but never felt right about it since. The next morning was better. I stepped outside, took pictures of the misty valley, and breathed in the crisp air. The beauty around me almost made me forget the sounds from last night. But by the third night, everything changed. Around midnight I woke with a start. The rustling outside was louder this time. It sounded like footsteps. My heart raced as I lay still, straining to hear anything. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath. I got up slowly and moved to the window. I looked outside, but I saw nothing, just trees and shadows hidden in the fog. The days blurred together after that. I found strange footprints in the mud outside my cabin. They were big, too big for deer or anything I knew. I took photographs, but that only deepened my doubts. What was happening? Each day the creeping feeling in my stomach got worse. I noticed odd shapes in my pictures too. I could have sworn I saw something in the distance, but it always vanished when I looked. One evening as I stepped outside, a chill ran down my spine. Shadows moved around the trees just out of sight. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. I felt watched. I glanced over my shoulder often, expecting to see someone or something. Then came the last night. I went to bed, trying to shake off the unease. It started quietly until I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced. I paused, unsure of what to do. Then I heard a voice whisper my name, soft yet clear. I thought I saw a figure through the window, but it was gone when I looked. I stood frozen. Then came the thud, right outside my window. I was terrified. "Hello?" I called out, but nobody replied. The silence weighed heavy. I tried to calm down, but the cold seeped into my bones. I finally turned around and realized the cabin door was wide open. No one was there. I took a step back, and I can't explain it, but I felt like I was never alone. Something was lurking out there in the woods, waiting in the fog. I didn't feel safe in my own cabin anymore. I just wanted to leave. The next morning felt different. The air was still thin, but it had a raw edge that made me anxious. I knew I had to leave, but packing felt like a monumental task. I decided to take one last walk around the cabin before I made up my mind. Maybe the sunlight would clear my head. As I stepped outside, I paused. The silence felt heavier than usual. I forced myself to breathe and moved toward the tree line. Each step echoed, and the ground was spongy beneath my feet. It took only a few minutes to reach the start of the woods. That's when I noticed something odd. All the usual sounds of the forest were missing. No chirping birds, no rustling leaves, just an eerie, hanging quiet. I shivered. I glanced back at my cabin, feeling a pull to head back, but curiosity pushed me forward. I took a few steps into the trees. My camera hung around my neck, and I looked through the lens. Maybe I was just imagining things, but the shadows seemed to shift. It felt like they were alive, waiting for me. I aimed at a group of trees and snapped a picture. When I checked the display, my heart sank. In the distance, something moved. Not a deer or a raccoon, but something taller. It was a fleeting shadow, hidden behind the trunks. I blinked, and it was gone. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just my imagination. I took another step and felt a twig snap under my foot. The sound felt loud, invasive. I turned and saw it again, just a glimpse. A shape, tall and thin, slipping deeper into the woods. Panic bubbled in my chest. I had to know what it was. I had to see it. but part of me screamed to run. Instead, I took a few uncertain steps further in. Then I found something strange on the ground, a piece of fabric snagged on a branch. I bent down to pick it up. It was rough, dark green, and looked like it belonged to a backpack. My heart raced. Had someone else been here? Why would they leave their things behind? I glanced around, feeling like eyes were burning into me from the trees. Standing there, I suddenly felt the weight of the silence close in. I had to get back. Cradling the fabric in my hands, I turned to retrace my steps. That's when I saw it again. Not an imprint, not a shadow. It was a figure moving slowly to my left. I froze. It stood still, almost as if assessing me. I couldn't make out details, but I could feel a sense of isolation, as if I was in the presence of something ancient. I turned to run, adrenaline surging, but the ground felt sticky and unyielding. As I fled, I could hear the sound of quiet footsteps right behind me, echoing the frantic rhythm of my heartbeat. I burst through the trees, desperate to reach the safety of my cabin. When I finally reached the door, it slammed shut behind me on its own. My breath was hot and ragged. I felt the weight of something lurking outside. I peered through a crack in the window. The figure was gone, but the forest felt alive, pulsating with an unseen energy. I knew now that leaving wouldn't be as easy as I hoped. The entity was watching, waiting, and I couldn't escape the sensation that it wanted something from me. I decided then, I couldn't just wait here. I had to know. I took a deep breath, grabbed my things, and prepared for a confrontation. I knew I had to face whatever was in those woods, but little did I realize, it was already too late for that. I stood in the shadows of my cabin, my heart still racing. The oppressive silence outside made my mind spin. Did I really see a figure, or was it just my anxiety playing tricks on me? I shook my head, trying to push the thoughts away. I had to be logical. Whatever was out there didn't just materialize, there must have been signs. Something I overlooked. I grabbed my flashlight and took a deep breath. Fear snaked through me, but I wouldn't let it win. I stepped outside again, feeling the chill seep into my bones. The woods loomed larger than before, their twisted branches like fingers pointing toward my fate. Still clutching the green fabric, I felt a determination building within me. The clearing was eerily quiet. I focused on the spot where I had seen the figure. It had slipped away like a whisper, but it wouldn't evade my search. I turned on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. I felt an urge to go toward the area that had held the mystery. If I could just get close enough, maybe I could confront whatever was haunting me. As I drew nearer to where I had found the fabric, something glinted on the ground. My heart lurched. It was a small metallic object, an old compass. I bent down to pick it up, brushing the dirt off its surface. The needle spun wildly, refusing to settle, adding to my sense of dread. I glanced around. It felt wrong. The air was stale, thick, as if the trees were holding their breath. Then, something caught my eye. A slight movement just beyond the reach of my flashlight. I swung the beam toward it, but nothing remained. I suppressed the urge to scream. I was losing my grip on sanity, and yet a part of me was tethered to this madness. I had to find answers. That's when a low, guttural growl echoed through the trees. It felt close, too close. Panic gripped me again. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close. With trembling hands, I squinted into the darkness. The compass clutched tightly. I felt the urge to call out, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't want to alert whatever lurked beneath the canopy. Instead, I stepped forward, edging closer to the sound. A twig snapped. I caught the rustle of leaves, my breath caught in my throat. I wanted to run, but instead froze, my instincts battling against the dread that held me. In that moment, I knew I needed to confront whatever was there. The hunter was becoming the hunted. I took another step, and the night shifted. Suddenly the growl intensified, reverberating through my bones. I could feel its proximity, but I still couldn't see it. Just when I thought about turning back, I felt something cold brush against my arm. A flash of panic surged through me. My flashlight flickered, illuminating a gnarled face looming just ahead. I could see its eyes, reflecting an unsettling awareness. Then, everything went dark. I blinked against the void. Darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. My heart thudded in my chest, and I forced myself to breathe. I felt disoriented, as if the world had shifted around me while I was frozen in place. The flashlight had gone out, plunging me deeper into the night. "Hello," I whispered, my voice sounding weak and small. No answer came, just the whisper of the wind through the trees. A creeping sense of dread filled my thoughts. Where had it gone? That figure, that face, it felt like a nightmare I could not shake off. I fumbled with the flashlight, banging it against my palm in vain hopes of reviving the beam. I needed light. The growl still echoed in my ears, but now the woods were eerily silent again. I was utterly alone. I took a shaky step back, but my foot caught on something and I stumbled. As I regained my balance, my hand brushed against something cold and hard on the ground. I bent down, using what little light there was to inspect it. It was another metallic object. I squinted at it. A knife. My pulse quickened. Why was there a knife in the woods? What did it mean? Gripping the knife, I rose to my feet, a mix of fear and adrenaline surging through me. A rustle came from my right, this time more pronounced, like something moving through the underbrush. I turned sharply, my stomach twisted in knots. I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone. Then I heard a voice. It was faint, but distinct, almost melodic. It murmured in a language I didn't recognize, carried by the wind. My breath hitched. I strained to listen, half expecting the figure to reappear. It felt like an incantation, something forgotten yet powerful. I couldn't understand it, but it sent shivers down my spine. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. The voice stopped, silence engulfing the space around me. I was left with the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then came the growl again, deeper this time and unmistakably close. Panic surged, and I took off in the opposite direction, my feet tearing through the underbrush. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, my lungs burning, but I couldn't stop. I had to escape whatever was hunting me. I pushed through trees and brush, losing my sense of direction as I navigated the darkness. Just when I thought I found my bearings, I skidded to a halt. In the distance, a light flickered, a warm, inviting glow cutting through the night. I stumbled toward it, the knife still clutched in my hand. As I drew closer, the voice returned, but this time it was different, an echo of my name. Was it calling to me? My instincts screamed to get away, but the light felt like a beacon pulling me in. I had to know if it was safety or another trap. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the light, my heart racing. Then suddenly, it disappeared. Darkness engulfed me once more, but this time the growl was behind me. I whirled around, ready for anything as shadows loomed at the edge of my vision. There was no turning back now. I barely had time to think before the growl transformed into a low, guttural roar, reverberating through the woods, sending chills racing down my spine. Adrenaline surged, and I sprinted forward, dodging trees and roots that threatened to trip me. I didn't stop to question where I was running. All I knew was that I couldn't let it catch me. My mind raced with images of the figure I had glimpsed earlier, its face twisted into something primal. The thought of it lurking just behind me drove me to move faster. But as I dove through a thicket, something shifted. The air felt inexplicably colder, almost icy, sending a shivering wave through my body. I hesitated, my breath coming in ragged bursts. In front of me lay a clearing, and in the center stood an old, gnarled oak tree, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands against the dark sky. A sense of foreboding washed over me. Against my better judgment, I approached the tree. There was something odd about the ground beneath it, a series of symbols carved into the earth, faint but visible. They glowed with a dull luminescence, pulsing gently, almost in sync with my heartbeat. I knelt down, compelled to touch them. Then, a sudden snap of a branch echoed from behind. I whipped around, clutching the knife, my heart hammering. The figure emerged from the shadows, the growl low and deep, pulling the very breath from my lungs. It stood there, its eyes glaring with an unnatural intelligence, more animal than human. I backpedaled, glancing at the symbols again. They felt like an answer, or perhaps a warning. I needed to understand what they meant. "Stay back!" I shouted, my voice trembling. My mind reeled, desperate to think of an escape. Just then, the words from the earlier voice slipped back into my mind. It had been a chant, I realized. I didn't know what it meant, but perhaps it was connected to those symbols. The figure took a step forward, its eyes shining brighter now, a malicious intent burning beneath the surface. I was backing into the tree, and the roots twisted around my feet like a serpent, anchoring me in place. "Please leave me alone," I cried, wigging my feet in a futile, desperate effort to free myself. The growl deepened, almost mocking. I raised the knife, my last line of defense, as panic engulfed me. But before I could make a decision, a spontaneous urge sprang within me. I recalled the voice and the rhythm of its language. "Elone vel rune," I murmured, the words tumbling from my lips without thought. The moment I spoke, the symbols flared, lighting up in vibrant colors, chasing the shadows away. The creature hesitated, confusion painting its features. I didn't have time to wonder why. I repeated the phrase again, and the light intensified, pushing back against the darkness. I was caught between two forces, the unknown power of the symbols and the primal figure threatening to pounce. That's when I saw it. The knife in my hand started to glow, my palms tingled, and a pulse of energy ran through me. I had no idea what was happening, but there was no time left to question it. I flung the knife toward the creature, not sure what I expected. Everything spun as the knife embedded itself into the ground at the tree's roots. The world went dark again, and silence reigned, blanketing me in its eerie embrace. And then a different kind of growl rolled through the air. The ground trembled beneath my feet, awakening something. The ground pulsed beneath me, a deep thrum that synced with my racing heart. I stumbled back, panic flaring in my chest. What was happening? The last rays of light flickered like dying stars as shadows engulfed the clearing. The air thickened, heavy with something ancient and powerful. The glow from the symbols danced erratically, casting eerie shapes on the trees around me. The figure seemed to sense the change. It hesitated at first, its predatory instincts clashing with curiosity. I watched, breathless, as its features morphed, confusion knitting its brow. Then, without warning, the earth shuddered again, and a crack split the ground at the base of the oak tree. My fear roared back to life. I darted away from the tree, trying to escape whatever was awakening. I had no idea what lay beneath the roots, but my instincts screamed for me to flee. As I turned, I caught a glimpse of the figure, shifting, almost flickering like an old film reel. It lunged, but I was already moving. I ran, heart pounding in time with the tremors beneath my feet, my thoughts racing. Where was I supposed to go? My options were slipping away like sand through my fingers. Ahead, I spotted a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. I took off, adrenaline fueling my flight. The growl echoed behind me, chasing me through the darkness. It wasn't just my mind playing tricks anymore. Something was awakening, and it was angry. The branches clawed at my clothes as I dashed through the thicket. All I could think about was getting distance between me and that creature. Then, a sudden bright flash lit the air behind me, and I stumbled, nearly falling. I turned just in time to see the knife, the one I had thrown, struck by a brilliant light that shot up into the sky, illuminating the clearing. The creature stopped in its tracks, its growl turning into a low roar of pain. I didn't understand why it was reacting this way, but now wasn't the time to question it. I pressed on, my legs burning, urging me to keep moving. But as I plunged deeper into the woods, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. A connection. I didn't know how, but it felt like the symbols were guiding me, sending subtle instructions through the trembling ground. I couldn't stop to process this. My instincts had to take over. I flew down the path, navigating the trees until I reached a small stream. I skidded to a halt, catching my breath as the cold water lapped at my feet. I needed to figure out my next move. Just as I was about to bend down to drink, a rustle in the bushes nearby grabbed my attention. I froze, a shard of fear slicing through me. Someone or something was lurking just beyond the shadows. They knew I was there. My breath hitched. "Help me," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. And then a glint of metal caught my eye. A fragment of the knife still shining from where it had landed, echoing that wild power. I felt compelled to go back, but the thought of facing that creature again sent a fresh wave of terror through me. I glanced back toward the path. The sounds of rustling grew closer. Something was emerging from the underbrush, and I had to decide. Would I face whatever that was or return to the glowing symbols? As I weighed my choices, a figure stepped into the moonlight, and my instincts screamed in protest. This was not over. The figure stepped closer, and my instincts kicked in harder than ever. It was a woman. Her hair was wild, framing her face like a halo of darkness, and her eyes shimmered with an otherworldly light that both scared and intrigued me. I had no time to process who she was. "Please, I can help you," she said, her voice a low whisper that barely cut through the rushing water's sound. But her words made my heart race faster. Was she here to save me or to lead me into further danger? The rustling in the bushes stopped, and a heavy silence settled around us. I had to make a choice, but my body felt paralyzed by fear. "What do you mean?" I dared to ask, trying to muster some courage. "They are awakening," she replied, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting something to emerge. "You must come with me." "Why should I trust you?" I shot back, scrambling back a step. "Because I know what you've done," she answered, pointing towards the path I'd fled from. "And I can guide you through the darkness." That made it worse. How did she know? I hesitated, then turned to look back at the path. I could still see the glow of the symbols faintly illuminating the fog around the oak tree. It beckoned to me. But there was a threat, too. A creature still lurking close by, angered and searching. I can't," I stammered, fear chaining me to the ground. The memory of the growl haunted me, echoing in my mind. Suddenly, the woman reached out, her hand brushing against my arm. Electricity surged through me. "It's not safe here. We must move now." The urgency in her voice broke through my hesitation. I nodded, finally deciding to follow her. She turned abruptly, leading me back past the stream, moving with a grace that felt almost unnatural. My heart thudded heavily in my chest, and I glanced back one last time towards the path. Then I heard it, a deep guttural growl rising from the shadows behind me. Panic erupted anew. "Hurry!" I gasped, following her deeper into the woods. We weaved through the trees, branches snagging at my clothes as if trying to hold me back. The forest felt alive, breathing around us, and I was acutely aware of the danger lurking in the darkness. "Where are we going?" I asked, desperate for clarity. "To the ridge," she said, not slowing her pace. "It's a place of power. We can hide and gather strength." "Strength for what?" I panted, struggling to keep up. "You'll find out soon enough, just trust me." I could feel the creature's presence closing in. We stumbled into a small clearing at the base of the ridge. The moon hung low, flooding the area with silver light. My heart sank when I saw the symbols carved into the stone at the base of the ridge, glowing faintly in the night. That's when I realized what she meant. I could feel the pull, like a magnetic field tingling across my skin. The connection to the symbols grew stronger with every heartbeat. I turned to ask her how, but her expression shifted to one of fear. "Get ready." Before I could question what she meant, a roar pierced the night, shattering the silence. I didn't need to look. I could sense it drawing closer, the air growing heavier with each heartbeat. "Something's coming!" I shouted, panic rising in my throat. Her eyes locked onto mine, unwavering. "Whatever it is, we face it together." But just then, a dark shape darted between the trees, and I caught a glimpse of glowing eyes fixating on us both. My stomach twisted. This wasn't going to end well. I barely had time to register what was happening. The shadows morphed into a solid figure, a massive beast whose features seemed to shimmer with the moonlight, making it appear as if it were part of the night itself. My breath hitched in my throat as I caught the glint of razor-sharp teeth and dark fur that rippled like water in the wind. "Stay close to me," the woman said sharply, positioning herself slightly ahead of me, blocking the beast's path. Her fearlessness was striking, but I felt fear flooding me like icy water. The creature growled again, a chilling sound that reverberated deep in my chest. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen as if caught in a spell. "Now, focus on the symbols," she commanded, her voice cutting through my fog of terror. I glanced at the glowing markings carved into the stones at our feet. They pulsed with light, and the sensation was overpowering. Something within me began to respond, a whisper calling from the depths of my being. "What are they?" I shouted over the wind. "What do they do?" "They are a conduit. Use them," she urged, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I looked back at the creature, which was now circling us like a predator. It eyed the symbols with undeniable interest, as if sensing their power. I took a step forward, compelled by an instinct I didn't understand. "What if they're not enough?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "They will be if you believe," she yelled, and I could hear the desperation behind her words. With a deep breath, I reached out to touch the nearest stone. The moment my fingers brushed against its surface, electricity shot through my body, and the symbols flared brightly, illuminating the clearing like twin suns. Colors surged through me, hot and cold, filling me with strength I didn't know I possessed. The beast recoiled, growling as it shielded its eyes from the light. I felt the power of the symbols surging like a tidal wave weaving around me. Something deep inside whispered that I had to harness this energy. I closed my eyes, focusing on the pulse of the symbols, feeling their magic entwine with my own. But the moment didn't last. A swift movement caught my eye as I felt a jolt like a punch to my stomach. The woman staggered but didn't fall. Something had struck her, but I couldn't see anything but shadows. "Stay focused," she shouted, fighting back whatever it was. Panic boiled within me. The beast thrashed against the light, but it was closing in, undeterred. My heart raced as the world around me turned into a blur. "What do I do?" I screamed, desperation washing over me like a tidal wave. "Draw it in," she yelled, her voice strained. The woman pushed against the energy, her silhouette flickering like a candle's flame. She fought back whatever force was attacking her but looked ready to collapse. That's when I felt it, the bond we shared. She wasn't just fighting on her own, she was linked to me, the symbols, and the very ground beneath us. I took a step forward, embracing the magic of the symbols. The ground trembled slightly as I focused, and my thoughts became clear. I knew what needed to be done. But just as I began to call forth that energy, the air around us thickened. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for air. The moonlight still bathed the clearing, but now it was unusually still, as if the night had held its breath. I looked around, disoriented. The beast was gone, and so was the woman. "Hello?" I called out into the silence, but my voice echoed back to me, swallowed by the darkness. My heart raced. Was I alone now? I felt a heaviness in the air, a weight that pressed down on me like a thick fog. Anxiety coiled in my stomach. I stumbled to my feet, the glowing symbols dimmed but still faintly pulsing. I needed to find the woman. I scanned the perimeter of the clearing. The shadows felt alive, twitching at the edges of my vision. There was something unsettling about their dance, as if they were trying to communicate. I listened, hoping to hear her voice, but all that greeted me was a low growl that echoed through the trees. "No. No. No," I muttered to myself, backing away from the sound. My feet hit the stones, and I felt a rush of warmth. The power was still there, ready to be tapped. I considered the symbols, their potential, but the reality of my situation crashed over me like a wave. Suddenly I noticed a pattern in the markings I hadn't seen before. They were shifting, a sequence that seemed familiar but opaque at the same time. The energy was calling to me again, begging to be used. Could it protect me this time? Before I could decide, a rustle came from my left, followed by a shape darting out from the trees. I flinched, instinctively raising my arms. But it was just a small deer, its eyes wide with fear as it froze. "Please don't be scared," I whispered, lowering my hands. The poor thing took a step back, then bolted into the thicket. I tried to calm my racing heart. Maybe there was hope. Maybe no more danger was lurking. But just as I started to relax, a chilling laugh sliced through the air, sharp and mocking. It echoed in the trees, a sound that chilled me deeper than the chill of the night. I turned, searching for the source, but the shadows shifted, merging into an outline I couldn't recognize. "Show yourself!" I shouted, my voice lacking the confidence I tried to project. From the darkness, a figure emerged. A man stepped into the moonlight, his features obscured by a hood. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice both smooth and menacing. I took a step back, realizing that the threat was far from over. "This place isn't safe," he added, tilting his head slightly as if assessing me. "You've awakened something you can't control." A knot formed in my stomach. "Where's the woman?" I demanded, a surge of anger fueling my voice. But he only grinned, revealing sharp, white teeth. "Time is short. You don't know what you've done," he said, his eyes glinting with something sinister. I felt the darkness close in again, and I knew I had to make a choice. That's when I noticed it. The symbols on the stones flared back to life. An unexpected surge of energy flooded my senses, and in that moment, I saw the truth, that my connection with the woman had only just begun. The shadows roared around me, and I had to decide if I would step into the light or let darkness claim me instead. I tightened my grip on the stone beneath my feet as the man's wicked grin widened. "You think strength comes from light, but darkness holds its own kind of power." With that, he stepped closer, the dark energy around him seeming to ripple and pulse, feeding off the night. "No," I shouted, feeling the warmth of the symbols beneath my fingertips. I focused on their glow, willing them to respond to my fear. The light pulsed in response, battling against the encroaching shadows. For a brief moment I caught a glimpse of the woman's face in my mind, her courage, her certainty. She believed in something deeper, something primal about this place, and I could almost hear her voice encouraging me. "Use it." I could feel the connection surging again, the energy coursing through me like a thunderstorm waiting to unleash its fury. I closed my eyes and tapped into it, calling upon the glow within the symbols, summoning every ounce of bravery I had. "You don't control me," I cried as the words spilled forth. The man faltered, his expression shifting from amusement to confusion. In that moment of distraction, I raised my free hand, channeling the energy from the glowing symbols. It enveloped me like a mantle of light, creating an aura that pushed back against the darkness swirling around him. "You're a fool," the man spat, his voice shaky now. The shadows behind him recoiled, and I sensed their fear reflected in his features. "Am I?" I shouted, letting the light swirl around me, igniting the markings on the stones and infusing me with strength. I took a step forward, feeling the grounded connection of this ancient place. "You're the one who will be forgotten." In a flash, I lunged toward him, thrusting my hand forward. Light burst forth from me in radiant beams, cutting through the darkness. The man screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed through the woods as the shadows dissipated, retreating into the depths of the forest. The glow enveloped him, twisting his form until he shrank back into obscurity, lost in the black forest of night. Then, just like that, silence fell. I stood there, breathing heavily, my heart racing. The symbols faded back to their natural stone hue, but as the immediate threat of the man faded, so did the confidence I felt moments earlier. The air around me felt charged, and eerie stillness lay heavy in the aftermath of my confrontation. I searched for the woman, calling her name, feeling the absence of her presence, the weight of that loss pressing upon my chest. "Where are you?" I cried, a mix of hope and dread curling in my stomach. The woods remained unmoving, replies swallowed by darkness. Did she dare to come near the fight? Had the man taken her? Then I felt it. A pulse beneath my feet, like a heartbeat from the ground itself, drawing me back to the clearing at the base of the ridge. I made my way towards it, each step cautious, listening for the faintest of sounds. But through the silence and shadows, nothing beckoned me forward, not even the thrum of danger. Arriving back at the gnarled oak, I leaned against the ancient trunk. "Please," I murmured, closing my eyes against the overwhelming weight of the situation. I didn't know what had happened, what had been unleashed, or if it had come out fully. But there it was, a tangle of fear and uncertainty woven into my very fabric. The trees around me whispered, their leaves shifting and rustling gently, but it wasn't just the wind. I could almost hear those haunting words again. The chant from before, synchronizing with the thudding in my heart. Elorn vel rune. I shivered, opening my eyes again and peering into the shadows of the forest. A flicker of movement caught my attention briefly, then vanished. "What are you?" I whispered to the woods, longing for an answer, yet afraid of what they might reveal. The night stretched languidly, and I remained there, pondering the untold depths of the woods surrounding me. Even if I had vanquished the man, there were more truths buried beneath the surface, mysteries woven into the very soil of my encounter. I felt intertwined with the very essence of this place in ways I would never fully understand. As I turned to leave, a final breath of wind passed through the trees, carrying with it an echo. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination or reality, but in that moment I knew my connection to this land was far from over. I might have escaped for now, but something waited in the darkness. And perhaps one day I would have to face it again. I moved forward, heart heavy yet resolute, uncertain of what lay ahead, but knowing I had to find my own path through this labyrinth of uncertainty. I left the clearing, wondering if I truly escaped or merely opened the door to a greater darkness. But my journey into the mysteries of the woods had only just begun.